Hi, Nilima.
Hello, good evening,
Hi.
everybody. We're recording. It's exactly 6:30 p.m. India on International Yoga Day, the 21st of June, 2019. And I am so delighted to have Kumar Sharma, the author of The Age of Ananda, on this Shakti Dialogue with me, Nilima Bhat, the co-author of Shakti Leadership, and My Cancer is Me. We are both Aurobindians, and we just thought it would be a great day today to talk about the integral yoga for the life divine, and to use the next hour to describe the integral yoga and the life divine, and then have another 15 minutes of Q&A. Delighted that some of our friends are joining us. I see you all have some connection with Mother Shri Aurobindo. Welcome Rashi, welcome Poonam, welcome Maggie. And I request you mute yourselves until we have the Q&A. So on that wonderful note, Kumar, such a delightful subject and such a privilege to be discussing this. I'm just checking that we are recording. It says it is.
It says recording at my end.
All right, wonderful. And Rashi, if you could also be off video, that would help, because otherwise there's a picture that's visible here. At the bottom of the screen, you can switch off the video as well. You can't find it? It's the bottom of the screen where it says mute, and next to it on the bottom left, there is a stop video icon, and where you can switch off your, yeah, perfect, wonderful. So, Kumar, we thought we would start, of course, by giving an introduction to why are we doing this call today on International Yoga Day. If you could give us a brief overview of what are all the different yogas and the wonderful paths out there, past and present, and what is the integral yoga and why is it needed towards the life divine? So over to you.
Let me start by thanking you, Nilima, for making this forum possible on this International Day of Yoga, and also for coming up with this topic yesterday, which brings together integral yoga and the life divine, which are the seminal works of Sri Aurobindo, the teacher of conscious spiritual evolution. So on this day of International Yoga Day, I want to start by saying what we commonly understand by yoga and how the integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo is different from but is supported by all of them. The first thing to understand is that by yoga we mean an approach to the divine which helps us to connect with it directly. The union, yoke, these are all the words that we have in different languages, Sanskrit to English. So the union, and union with what? Union with the divine ultimate ground of being and reality. Simple as that. So all yogas are efforts to connect with the divine, which in the philosophy of Sri Aurobindo, which follows the concepts of Vedanta and the Veda itself, the ultimate reality and ground of being is pure consciousness, without an object, without any thought beyond the mind. And this consciousness being the primal ground, which has always been and always continues to be, all that we see as this manifest universe is within the folds of this consciousness. And in Sanskrit, this consciousness, the cosmic consciousness, is called Brahman. So the integral yoga and other yogas also have one thing in common, which is that they say that experientially through identity, one has to know the ultimate supreme reality. Brahman, which is also identified in a great statement of knowledge with the Atman. Atma is Brahman. The individual soul is the universal soul. And to know that is the finale to most traditions of yoga. So what are the other traditions of yoga that we have heard of? There is Hatha Yoga, which is most widely practiced and associated with the word yoga itself. But remember, Hatha Yoga itself has 8 limbs, of which asana and pranayama are just the 3rd and 4th. And prior to that are whole disciplines and practices of purification, etc. Yama and niyama, internal and external. And then there are practices of meditation and concentration leading up to samadhi, which is unity consciousness. So whether it is bhakti yoga, which is through devotion to a personally loved and beloved Godhead or Goddess, or through Jnana Yoga, which is the introspective inquiry into who am I and realizing it is pure consciousness, both cosmic and individual, or Karma Yoga, which is the path of action where you see all of existence as a totality of one being. And in that unitary consciousness, all beings are you, and you are them, all in one Brahman. And that becomes the abiding source and spirit of love and compassion with which you serve people, the planet, anybody who needs help of any kind that you can help. So herein is the sentiment or the cultivation of unitary consciousness as a way to see the same divine in all beings. And in these troubled times, as we are kind of running amok and heading toward a direction of destroying ourselves, waking up to this higher level of consciousness and connecting with it through any of the yogas would be a good thing. Hatha Yoga prepares the body and the mind. It becomes Raja Yoga when we focus on the internal processes. Karma Yoga is the action, selfless action, egoless action. And so all of these yogas exist because people are at different levels of evolution. So in our Indian traditions, the different yogas become relevant, appropriate, and appealing to different people, depending on our own temperament, karma, vasana, and evolution. So all the other yogas have their place and they support each other. Well, somebody may need only one, somebody may use a mix. All of that is allowed because each of us is individual and there is no one size fits all in the spiritual business. Okay, so the normal or the traditional yogas, their goal is the realization of the identity of the individual self with the universal consciousness known as Brahman, and to realize the joy of that, and often to kind of make that the ultimate goal in the sense of you want to abide in that and the world doesn't matter. Whereas in Sri Aurobindo's philosophy of spiritual evolution, which is his book, The Life Divine, which I invite and request everybody to read, form a study group, start reading The Life Divine. Every moment you spend is worth it, even if it seems hard to read in the beginning. I think we need reading clubs where we can help each other to discover the treasures that Sri Aurobindo has put in here regarding all of evolution, from the beginning of the universe to where we are today, and from now to what is coming up ahead for us. So now to plunge in with that preambles, which is integral yoga is a synthesis. It includes all of the earlier yogas, the traditional yogas, but it is uniquely different and based on the personal experiences of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, and which has been expounded in the Life Divine, which is his prose magnum opus, and Savitri, which is the poetry equivalent, of the same spiritual knowledge. So Aurobindo says that when we talk of evolution, the thing that is evolving has to be already included in what it is coming out of. It has to be involved. You don't get something new and different out of something that has no characteristics of what you get out of it. So Sri Aurobindo's unique idea of evolution is that this ultimate consciousness, Brahman, enfolds itself through matter. It evolves out of the matter life. And here we have to stop and say, if matter can come out of consciousness, matter is already involved in consciousness. And then you get inert, insentient matter, stars, planets, rocks, and so on. And in some of them, through some process, forms of life begin to evolve. And in some forms of life, a mind of some sort begins to evolve. And in some minds, a sense of higher realities and finding them through various processes of yogic discovery, that begins to evolve. So all of this means that what is evolving was already involved. So if life emerges from matter, the instinct and impulse for life is within matter. And if out of some forms of life, mind emerges, that instinct and impulse is already there in the life form. And similarly, coming up to the human mind, which currently we consider the pinnacle of our evolution, Sri Aurobindo wants us and tells us, we are a transitional being. We are work in progress. He says all the problems of existential life we face today, including bringing our own civilization to disastrous end with climate change and other problems, and taking millions of other species with us as collateral damage. All of this comes about because we are at an evolutionary crisis. We are stuck at the level of the mental being without a clue that there are higher realms of consciousness towards which evolution is pushing us. And always any such phase shift is traumatic. It takes time. People may not know what is happening. Some early vanguards and pioneers like Sri Aurobindo and the mother, they find the way and they show us the way. So this is all new in the history of spirituality and evolution, because we are now talking of conscious evolution, and not only to a state of spiritual enlightenment or self-knowledge, but in Sri Aurobindo's life divine vision, bringing the light and power and love and the unitary consciousness of that supramental, as he calls it, from the mental to the supramental, where we touch the infinite consciousness. So the supramental is the next step that we have to go in our evolution. Evolution from the mental being, overly mental, to the point where our rational mind denies any higher reality, or thinks that consciousness is oozing out of the brain like some juice or something. The methods of modern science as well as Western philosophy miss the whole picture of the essence of consciousness, which is subjective. There is no object involved that you can look at with microscopes or telescopes or analyze with your overly well-developed left brain logical intellect, which always wants proof. But when it comes to consciousness, you're asking for proof of what enables you to have the sentience to ask for that proof. So there is a bootstrap, there is a regressing kind of situation here. And the way to break out of it is through another modality of knowledge. That is all the yogas. And the integral yoga goes beyond the other yogas in saying what they consider the culmination in self-knowledge is the beginning of a journey where you ascend to the highest levels of supramental consciousness and bring its power down to the physical body and at the cellular level transform this death and disease and pain-born body into a immortal body of light. This is the grand vision at the level of physical transmutation. And the mother was doing this yoga at the cellular level when she transited to the other worlds to continue her work from behind. So the integral yoga, about which Nilima will talk at length, is the practice aspect of the life divine. The vision itself in the life divine is that we are evolutionary beings, and now with self-awareness and self-knowledge, we can evolve consciously and bring that supramental power and bliss into the realm of the physical and divinize the physical, the vital, the mental, from the supramental down and up. I've called it in my book the double helix of spiritual evolution and physical evolution. So the upward ascent is the spiritual part, the downward descent is the physical part, getting the spiritual divinizing element fixed in it, all the way to the cellular level. So that it is possible, if this yoga is done right, that the participants can live longer lives, of course, healthier lives in a body that is evolving. So even the physical body is not the end product of evolution. So we have a lot of work to do in terms of going in that direction. And I would like to pause and do a time check if Nilima, if that's a good summary to start with.
You could go on a little bit more. We have at least another 10 minutes. Can you describe the life divine a little more in layman's terms? And
Yes.
as if you are speaking to your niece Purni, because as we were discussing earlier today, that Sri Aurobindo wrote from such a high level of consciousness
Yes.
that it is hard for the average person to understand.
Right.
And the reason we set up today's call is how can our conversation help bring that vision and teaching
Yes.
down?
I'll tell you what, this is a good time to read the first paragraphs of Sri Aurobindo's The Life Divine, which I will hold out for people to see. This is a 2-volume edition I have from my neighbor. Thanks to him, I have it here. And the first chapter, the title is The Human Aspiration. So to give you a feeling from his own words, listen to how he starts his odyssey of human evolution. The earliest preoccupation of man in his awakened thoughts and, as it seems, his inevitable and ultimate preoccupation, for it survives the longest periods of skepticism and returns after every banishment, is also the highest which his thought can envisage. It manifests itself in the divination of Godhead, the impulse towards perfection, the search after pure truth and unmixed bliss, the sense of a secret immortality. The ancient dawns of human knowledge have left us their witness to this constant aspiration. Today, we see a humanity satiated but not satisfied by victorious analysis of the externalities of nature, preparing to return to its primeval longings. The earliest formula of wisdom promises to be its last. God, light, freedom, immortality. I think this paragraph, if analyzed and commented on and meditated on and expanded, will deliver the whole idea of the divine life in itself. So Aurobindo had this character of mantras and Upanishads where the invocatory mantra or sloka will convey the story itself. And the mother has said, and I think Sri Aurobindo also, that Savitri for sure, and even the words of the life divine should be read in a state of meditation and contemplation where they come to us like sound vibrations, like mantras. And these words, which are for many people difficult in terms of Sri Aurobindo had very long sentences and they're not punctuated. And you have to get used to reading. You have to take a deep breath and start reading if you want to finish without running out of air. But it's worth the effort to learn how to read and relish his writing. For one reason, he has so much to explain, and he always gives the Purva Paksha. What are the opponents saying? And he will be so persuasive in that process that you will think he's making a case for his own philosophy. Such was his mastery of Western philosophy, which he had studied. I have not yet formally introduced Sri Aurobindo, so I want to read from the blurb of this wonderful. This is the first published biography of Sri Aurobindo, which he approved himself with his signature and blessings to the author, if people can pick that up. Can you see it, Nilima? He says, to promote with blessings Sri Aurobindo. And so the author, the blurb in the back of the book, in Bengali, it was published as Sri Aurobindo Jibano Jog. Okay? And in this back, it says, Sri Aurobindo was a scholar, a literary critic, a philosopher, a revolutionary, a poet, and a yogi. Born on 15th August 1972 in Calcutta, he spent the initial part of his life fighting for the basic rights of humanity, that is his countrymen, and freedom from the British. In his later life, the aim of his sadhana was for India and the entire mankind to gain the right to divinity. The word divinity is very important. He had a very active political life, but I won't read about that. He left all of that. So leaving politics for spiritual work, Sri Aurobindo developed a method of spiritual practice that he called integral yoga. The central theme of his vision was the evolution of human life into a divine life. And the divine life is what I started talking about, which is to go beyond the mental modality that we are stuck in, which is the cause of all our problems, and to realize, abide in, and operate from a higher supramental level of knowledge and vision and truth consciousness, which is the only way that the world will be transformed. Initially, one individual pioneer at a time, but collectively, it has to happen, and sooner the better for our own survival. And Sri Aurobindo and the mother and their followers have paved the ground and brought down the supramental in different stages of the power and fixed it in the earth consciousness starting from 1926 through 1956. So we have that work of their yoga seeded in the collective mind and consciousness through their writings and people meditating and following the integral yoga. So I think everybody listening here should join the club of integral yoga and evolve our way to the life divine. Thank you for listening and look forward to more questions and discussions down the road. Nilima.
I was thinking, Kumar, could you also therefore quickly share about who was the mother and not her spiritual personage, but just who was she and how did she come and how was she a partner in this work?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
The mother was a spiritually and in terms of occult knowledge advanced person even at the time of her birth in Paris. She was of Algerian and other Turkish descent, and even in her early years in Paris, she would have out of the body experiences where she would be floating above the city and looking at all the suffering and trying to enfold people with a white covering of protection and love. And she had a vision early on in her life of somebody whom she would meet later in life, who would be her true spiritual master or equal, and with whom she would do the rest of her life. But before that became realized, when she met Sri Aurobindo many years later, she learned the occult arts and knowledge from a legendary occultist called Max Thion. And at one point, she had to encounter his own negative energies because he had wanted to take over some aspect of her being. And she was strong enough spiritually to be able to overcome that. And then go on to India with her husband of that time. Roberts is his name. What was, what you remember his
Paul
name?
Richard, right?
Paul Richards, who had a role to play in the Life Divine by starting the journal Arya, in which Aurobindo wrote all the essays which became then collected in the Life Divine. So the mother joined Sri Aurobindo, I forget the year and all, but at the instant they met, they knew that all about each other because of their yogic powers. And Sri Aurobindo said many a time that she is my equal, not that she was his disciple. And he saw in her the manifestation of the divine consciousness force on the earth's plane at this critical time in our evolution. And he gave her the complete charge and power to continue the ashram. And it was on her sadhana that the cellular yoga of the body, she continued through 1973. And then also set up Auroville and the centers where people are continuing with this yoga. So the mother, to sum up, was she was a power of the goddess mother herself, incarnate to help humanity at a critical and difficult time in its transition through her presence, through what she did in bringing the supramental down and declaring victory in 1956, and then continuing and teaching the yoga of the cells through the 13 volumes of Agenda, which anybody interested in real evolution should look into. And I also touched on this in my book, called it the Double-Helix of spiritual and physical evolution, and have a character who actually has undergone the yoga. So that's another way to find out about it from a semi-fictional angle. Yes, the mother and Sri Aurobindo complement each other. They are powers that were together sent in a dual avataric role, I would say, because nothing in nature is accomplished by either consciousness alone or by energy alone. We need intelligent energy, conscious force, Shiva Shakti, and they represented the integral synthesis of those polarities for our times.
Perfect. I love that, Kumar. Just to clarify from what I remember, I think the mother had a Turkish father and an Egyptian mother. And they came from
sorry, I mixed up the countries. Yeah.
This is what I think I read. And
the
Algerian connection was with Max Theon when she went to study occultism in Algeria for some time. So
yes.
I want to take us into some simple slides that I had created.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to keep us on track. I was thinking, since we discussed the theme is integral yoga for the life divine, and this is our Shakti Dialogue on International Yoga Day, there are so many ways to approach the integral yoga. It occurred to me, let's approach it through their symbols. And Sri Aurobindo's symbol is here, these two triangles that interconnect into a square with waters and a lotus in it. And the mother symbol, which is concentric circles. There's one at the center, 4 petals on the outside, and then 12 on the final circle. And I thought, let's go into these, because in this very simple and yet profoundly powerful way, they have left behind these two symbols like seeds of their own consciousness and their own force. And even if we don't know how to understand all the words, or if they come from a dimension we don't really relate to, just working with these symbols makes it possible for us to connect with them, because these symbols are not just symbols. As we know in yoga, apart from mantra, there is something called a yantra. So yantra is spiritual energy in the form of, in form, in visuals, in shapes. And all the divinities in yoga have their own yantras. So when you're looking at the symbol of a certain divinity, it is effectively the same being. Instead of looking at a picture, you're looking at a symbol, but they are one and the same thing. So in an interesting way, when you're looking at these two symbols at the bottom of the screen, one is the mother and one is Sri Aurobindo. They are that. They are, this is them in symbolic geometric form. And the power of geometry, as we know, sacred geometry, it has the ability to capture and awaken the same power in ourselves by connecting with these yantras. When we connect with these yantras, we can breathe with them, we can use a mantra that goes with that yantra, and in the process, that being who is represented in that yantra becomes connected with us. We have access to that. We enter into relationship with that. And that power of that being can come into us and do the work of inner transformation on our mind, our life, our body. So this is, yantra yoga is another form of yoga. So I thought, let's look at today's integral yoga through these two yantras or symbols of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Okay. Sri Aurobindo's symbol, if I were to capture it, it's the promise of the life divine. It's saying, here it is, it's going to happen. And it's essentially two interconnecting triangles. There is a triangle going up, which is effectively the yearning and the longing and the aspiration of matter that is seeking to get spiritualized. And it has three forces that work in it: love, life, and light. And Simon, this would map onto your ascending spiral of evolution. And equally, there is another force coming down. There's another impulse coming down, which is the downward triangle of the Sat Chit Ananda, which is existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute, which is one way of describing the Supreme, which has these three qualities. And if you notice, when one flips into the other, Sat is the life, love is Ananda, and Chit is light. That's how they map into each other. They've just kind of flipped downwards. And when the split happens and the impulse to return to wholeness is what is the yoga that we are involved in as the integral yoga. And when spirit, which is Satchidananda, descends and matter, love, light, life, ascends, when the two come together in this perfect balance captured by the square in yoga is the earth element, is that embodied divinity, right? The earth element is the square, in which the lotus is the avatar, which is the full-blown divine consciousness, is floating in its multiplicity of creation. That's what the waters are. So all that which is possible in the divine plane is now physically manifested with full consciousness, with its full multiplicity being experienced and enjoyed, right? So in a way, this one symbol is what the life divine is, right? It's like a representation of the life divine, where matter has been spiritualized and spirit has been materialized, and we're experiencing this perfected state of our embodied being. Okay? So it's the promise of the life divine. This is where we are getting to. And then if you look at the mother symbol, it is the method to get to the life divine. And it is the grace of the integral yoga. So the integral yoga is a way, a path, a practice to get to the life divine, which was Sri Aurobindo's symbol. And the reason I've called it the grace of integral yoga, not just the method of integral yoga captured in this symbol, is because, as you will hear, we humans don't do the yoga. It is the mother, her force, her grace that takes us over and does the job of returning us to our source. She does the yoga. So the integral yoga is an act of grace. We can only prepare for it, but for it to get achieved, it's going to require the descent, the grace of the mother herself. And that is captured in this symbol. So let me go deeper into this symbol so we understand what does it mean to practice this yoga, okay? They have even explained what each of these petals represent. So if you look at the petals on the petal at the very center, that represents Adi Shakti, the Divine Mother's force herself, her own being. And she has put forth 4 powers, 4 aspects that are needed for this manifestation, this creation. And these 4 aspects, the archetypal power they represent are wisdom, strength, harmony, and perfection. And each of these is a goddess, because this power also comes in the form of a being who we can enter into relationship with, we can invoke. So the archetype, the power of wisdom, is carried by the goddess Maheshwari. The power of strength is carried by the goddess Mahakali. The power of harmony, to gather everything and keep it sweetly flowing together, is carried by the goddess Mahalakshmi. And the power of perfection, which is getting this whole great vision of the wisdom of what needs to be created, having the strength to get it done, fight the adverse forces, creating the harmony that brings it all together, still needs this final little piece of diligence. When you descend spirit into matter to create something beautiful and perfect, you need the power of a Maha Saraswati, who is the capacity to very patiently endure and dot the I's and cross the T's and create beauty and perfection in this extremely intractable matter. So these 4 goddesses, in a way, are from the most subtle to the grossest level. They are the ones who mediate the spiritualization of matter and equally the materialization of spirit. Now, if these goddesses are the ones who are actually doing the work of mediating between spirit and matter, between source, divine consciousness and its energy, then what do we have to do? What's left for us to do? What's left for us to do is to become the instruments through which these forces can work. Because we have body, we have the life force, we have the mind, we are here in this creation. So first, it is us who have to become divinized, so to speak, right? Our mind has to get enlightened. Our life force, our vital nature has to get purified. Our physical body has to become capable of manifesting divinity and let go patterns of disease and decay and death. So first, we have to get taken up. And how do we get taken up by these forces that are pouring down on us? How can we become worthy instruments or vessels into which these forces can flow? That's where you have to look at the outer petals. So the 12 petals are simple human qualities that exist in our own potentiality, our own higher nature. And this is something we can do. We can practice, do the sadhana of becoming sincere, humble, grateful, persevering, aspiring for that divine connection, having the receptivity, the ability to receive the response of the grace, wanting to keep progressing towards perfection, having the courage to fight the good fight and fight those resistances that rise up in and around us, have the ability to be good, have goodwill towards each other and ourselves, have a generosity in our nature, in our spirit, have an equanimity, an equality of being, a kind of balance within, and have this state of peace, the state of stillness, deep inside every cell of our body. Now, these 12 qualities are characteristics or virtues that we can practice and focus on. That which you focus on expands. That which you practice, anything that you practice, you get good at. So very simply, Mother has given us these 12 innocent qualities, simple qualities. They're not so simple if you go about practicing them in the real world, but if you get sincere about practicing them, that's why sincerity is the first quality to begin with. If we get sincere practicing each of these 12 qualities, we will get good at them. And when we do these 12 qualities, very naturally, our lower nature, which is driven by the 4 drives that keep us in our lower animal nature. The drives are eros and thanatos, which is the sexual impulse and the destructive impulse, expressed in a way that suits the animal kingdom, but hasn't been harnessed enough and matured enough to be used in a responsible way in the human kingdom, right? So these are drives that take us over. And so you have this terrible case of violence against women and sexual abuse and, children getting abused. And we haven't mastered the erotic drive, the eros with a small e. Equally, in the animal kingdom, it was okay to have the thanatos instinct, which is the drive to kill or be killed. Otherwise, you don't eat and you don't get to live. It's okay for the lion to attack a deer. But in the human, to have that death instinct, that need to kill is what's playing out in an immature, undeveloped consciousness of humanity, where we have terrorism, we have wars, we have murders, we have people killing each other, right? So these are drives driving us, and they overtake us. And in a moment of madness, we get taken over by the erotic impulse and the destructive impulse, and we behave in inappropriate ways and cause harm that doesn't go with the civilizational humanity that we need to be. Equally, there are 2 other drives, which is called logos and mythos. Logos is our mind and our left brain that you were talking about, and mythos is our mythic, imaginative self. These 2 are split. We tend to be in one or the other, and therefore we experience being split beings. And you have the world of science at odds with the world of arts, and even in ourselves, we become more mental beings to the neglect of our emotional nature, or vice versa. So we are split beings being taken over by these 4 drives going in all directions. But when we practice these 12 qualities, very naturally these 4 drives flip and become the 4 powers. So logos becomes wisdom, and mythos becomes that perfection, thanatos becomes strength, and eros becomes harmony. And now you become the vessel for 4 powers of the mother that are going to move through you to help raise the world up through your own life, your own work, right? So I just wanted to understand how we can use the mother symbol to do integral yoga, and how it is so deeply thought through and received. Thought may be the wrong word, you know, it's such a powerful, potent symbol. It's sitting right there with an incredible capacity for us to raise our own consciousness and reclaim power from our unconscious drives, which otherwise keep us in our lower ego selves. And Sri Aurobindo's and the mother's symbol have been put together. When Sri Aurobindo left his body, mother took on this symbol. And it's basically his force was given to her, and both forces came together in her being. And she said this is the effective manifestation of Ishvara, which is the divine masculine, and Ishwari, the divine feminine, in union. Between these two symbols, you have the goal and how to get there. And both have been put together so beautifully. So there are some references and links which you're free to go look up. This is going to be recorded. There is this incredible little book. And if there's nothing else you ever get to read from Mother and Sri Aurobindo, if it's this little book that you're going to read, it will get you started. And you can read it as many times and you will think you're reading it for the first time. It just happened for me today again. I thought, let me read from here a little bit about what is the centrality of the mother in the integral yoga. How is it different from other yogas, and especially because of this element of how it is not we, the sadhaks, who do the yoga, but the mother who does the yoga through us, right? And so let me read what he says. This is a little booklet written by Sri Aurobindo on the archetype called the mother. And he says, the one whom we adore as the mother is the divine conscious force that dominates all existence, one and yet so many-sided that to follow her movement is impossible even for the quickest mind and for the freest and most vast intelligence. The mother is the consciousness and force of the Supreme and far above all she creates. But something of her ways can be seen and felt through her embodiments, and the more seizable because more defined and limited temperament and action of the goddess forms in whom she consents to be manifest to her creatures. But personally too, she has stooped to descend here into the darkness that she may lead it to the light, into the falsehood and error that she may convert it to the truth, into this death that she may turn it to godlike life, into this world pain and its obstinate sorrow and suffering that she may end it in the transforming ecstasy of her sublime Ananda. In her deep and great love for her children, she has consented to put on herself the cloak of this obscurity, condescended to bear the attacks and torturing influences of the powers of the darkness and the falsehood, born to pass through the portals of the birth that is a death, taken upon herself the pangs and sorrows and sufferings of the creation. Since it seemed that thus alone could it be lifted to the light and joy and truth and eternal life. This is the great sacrifice, called sometimes the sacrifice of the Purusha, the divine masculine, but much more deeply the holocaust of Prakriti, the sacrifice of the Divine Mother. So now that we understand yet another difference of the integral yoga versus the other yogas, where the mother would call the other yogas the monkey yoga, where the baby monkey holds on tight to the mother monkey as it jumps from tree to tree and, does all the hard work. And she says, my yoga is the cat yoga, the kitten yoga. He says, you just be my children, you sadhaks be the kittens. And if you lose me, just start screaming loudly. Call me. Stand where you are, just call me. And I'll drop whatever I'm doing. That's what the cat does when it hears its kitten scream. It drops everything and comes rushing to aid and take over the situation. So very simply, the mother says, please don't do the yoga on your little devices. They are incapable of taking on the archetypal dark forces that are present to resist the evolution. The Divine Mother's force alone is capable of handling those archetypal challenging forces. They serve the purpose of evolving by giving us a pushback. But your mini-me devices can't push back. It's my force alone that can take us through this archetypal dark resistance that has been put into the mix so that evolution can keep rising by transcending the resistance. So this yoga is done by the mother. It isn't done by us. And what I thought I could take us through, therefore, is a simple meditation where we can open to the power of the grace to move into us. Would you like that?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. There are three centers in our being where we can have a door to the divine, to the mother. One is through the heart, the sacred inner heart, where the soul immanent divine resides. And the mantra for that is Om Ma, like a child you call the mother. The second is through the third eye, which is a doorway to the cosmic divine, that unity consciousness with all that is around us, the universal divine. And the mantra for that is Om Shri Ma. Om represents the divine masculine, Ma the divine feminine, and then Shri is the mantra for the body of creation itself. So we connect with the universal soul with Om Shri Ma. We connect with the individual soul with Om Ma, because the soul is a child of the divine masculine and feminine. And then through the Sahasrara chakra, the crown, opening that up, we connect with the transcendent divine, the divine mother who is above and beyond this creation, who is one with source. She's the supreme Shakti. This is the Maha Shakti, and this is the Chaitya Shakti, the soul Shakti, the mother within. So let's begin and get initiated into opening these three doors so that here on we can be in constant and conscious contact with the grace that is waiting to pour into us. So when we call, we aspire, and what comes back, we have to be able to receive. And so in the yoga, it says there are three things we have to do. One is aspiration, want the divine. Second is rejection, which is reject all that which is false in us, our tamasic body, our laziness, our vital negative instincts such as greed and hatred and jealousy and anger, and to completely surrender. Surrender to the force, all this good stuff that wishes to come and take us over. So aspiration, rejection, and surrender is what effectively we are entering into right now. Straighten your spine. Tap on your heart. Cover your heart with your palm. You've been knocking on the gateless gate of the Divine Mother. And start chanting Om Ma. Let's do this 3 times. And ask her, call on her like a child, like that kitten knowing that if you call sincerely, you aspire sincerely, she will come. And on this International Day of Yoga, may this happen. Follow me. Om Feel a wonderful presence in your heart. It can feel like a heat or a light. Breathe into it. Feel as if the door has been opened. Both hands on the heart center. And like a child, visualize yourself stepping into a wonderful cave, the Hridaya Guham, the sacred cave of the heart. At the center of this cave, in the sacred heart, is a pillar of light that goes through your spine, connecting heaven above with earth below. In this pillar of light is the most loving presence of the Divine Mother. Sense and have faith that she has answered your call and that she is waiting here with open arms. Step into the fire and allow yourself to be embraced. Let her heart merge with your heart, her breath merge with your breath, her mind, her life, her body merge with your mind, your life, your body. Keep breathing and surrendering your subconscious, your inconscient, your subliminal self. Leave nothing behind. Offer your whole self like a child. Surrender it to her. As you keep breathing and become this fire, this psychic fire of love, it expands in all directions until your whole being is burning with unconditional love and being purified and returned to love. The next center you open is to the cosmic mind, into unity consciousness. Bring your hands together in a prayer position at the heart and chant through the throat. Om Shri Ma. Forehead. Om Shri Crown. Om Shri Let your mind expand and spiral open like a beautiful galaxy. Become one with all the elements, earth, water, fire, air, and space. Become aware of your interatomic spaces. Become aware of the intergalactic space. Become aware that it is the same space inside and outside, and that matter is a very minuscule part. And what truly exists is this vast oneness of space. Your mind dissolves in this oneness because it doesn't know how to comprehend this infinity and eternity. And so all you can now be is the one, affirming that I am one and there is no other. From this wonderful state of oneness in the mind, an unconditional love in the heart, connected with the Mahashakti and the soul within. Open your hands in a gesture of calling and receiving. We chant Sri Aurobindo's mantra for Satchidananda Shakti. Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame feeling the Satchidananda consciousness descend as that triangle of Sri Aurobindo's symbol. Even as your mind, life, and body aspires to rise up in consciousness, feel the descent and the ascent taking place in you through your spine. Feel it pouring into your hands. Cross your hands over your heart, offering this power to the psychic being, the flame in the heart. And keep breathing until it merges with the Mahashakti of the mind. As your being is psychicized and spiritualized to the extent you can bear, we will chant Sri Aurobindo's Gayatri for the supramental Shakti and ask that it descend in us integrally now, opening our whole being at a cellular level to the descent of that consciousness. May our Adhar have the capacity to bear it. Om Tat Savitur Varam Rupam Jyotihi Parasya Dhimahi Yannah Satyena Deepayet. Feel Mother Sri Aurobindo's combined yantras spinning inside every cell of your body, asking for this cellular yoga, cellular union to take place on behalf of all humanity. May the cells of our bodies know the integral yoga. Every cell spins itself into a little ball of light, chanting Om Namo Bhagavate, 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 Om Namo Bhagavate. Until your whole being bursts into a ball of light and you become a sun radiating rays of harmonized light, truth, in all directions. You become the source of grace for all the lives you touch, as you are in a state of integral yoga to the extent you can manage and bear and achieve today. Bringing the left hand down to your belly button, returning to a more bearable way of remaining in constant and conscious contact with the Divine Mother. Let's practice the mantra breath such that when you inhale, you gather yourself in and up through your spine, letting your matter rise up to spirit to the mantra Om Ma. And when you exhale, receive spirit down into matter to the mantra Om Shri Ma. Inhaling in and up Om Ma. Exhaling down and out Om Shri Ma. Inhaling in and up Om Ma. Exhaling down and out Om Shri Ma. Becoming Sri Aurobindo's symbol of the ascent and the descent, anchored in your own sacred heart, your own soul consciousness that they call the psychic being. And feel that lotus blossom open from there in all directions in the multiplicity of your own creation in which you exist. As the mother symbol flowering in all directions from the center of your heart. Become that union of Ishvara and Ishwari, and a manifestation of that union now and here on. Just be with the breath, the mantra breath, Om Ma, Om Shri Ma. When you feel anchored and present, and there is peace in every cell of your body, take a deep breath, rub your hands, sweep them over your face, your eyes, towel down your body, come nice and awake, and welcome back into this moment in time and space, bringing the integral Yoga Shakti with you. There are some references and links that you can go back to later, and the websites for myself and Kumar, including the cellular healing meditation and all the rest tracks that come after the one I took you through.
Nilima, I'll be right back in a second. Will you take one or two questions?
Sure. You can put yourself on mute and take off the video. Wonderful, ladies. Thank you for being here. Rashi, Poonam, Anamika, Maggie. Thank you for holding the space. If any of you would like to share your experience of the day or of this video webinar,
frankly, Nilima, after the meditation, one doesn't feel like talking. So it was very, very calming and a different experience. I mean, I've not done a guided meditation like this. It was a nice experience.
Thank you, Anamika. And you're right about not feeling like speaking, because we are receiving the response to the sincere call, and we are integrating the grace.
Right.
At many, many levels. So it's fine, you don't need to speak, but drink lots of water and lie down on the floor or something natural, wood or stone, and just continue to aspire, reject, and surrender.
Okay.
Rashi, is there something you would like to share? The reason we also have these conversations is it's nice to bring ourselves out of this almost disembodied place into a more present in the body place.
Yeah, even it's very difficult for me to speak, but I wanted to share because I wanted to join this because I wanted to revise. You know, we study, we learn, we read, we attend workshops, we learn so much, and then we start doing our own work, and then we go so much into our own work that sometimes I just felt that I was asking for this, that I wanted to revise the basic and the simple, and it just came like a gift, and I planned everything so I could reach to my meditation room by 6:30. And you know, last 10 years I've been doing workshops on the 8 petals. I can't do all 12, but on 8 petals of mother's work, living, performing arts and visual arts. And you go so into it, then just to come back to this was so important. And just I've never attended this kind of meditation. Like, I actually felt both of them in, I just am so grateful, so grateful. I just cannot speak, but thank you, because that was my question, which I joined with, besides the revision was my desire and aspiration. But my question was that, when I'm in the workshop, I hear and do whatever they tell me to do, but I want to be in the state of integral yoga 24 hours. I want to be like that all the time. I don't want to just when I step into work, when I download ideas, when I do work for others, only then. I want to be like this all the time. And that is what I needed some tool, and just this the stream meditation thing. I think that made me very connected. Even though I said big picture everywhere there, but even then sometimes I needed this kind of yeah.
Thank you. This mantra breath is very simple and very powerful. Just we inhale and exhale all the time, but when we do the mantra with it, or we are with them. Om Ma, Om Shri Ma. Everywhere you go, there she is.
Too fast also. Like my whole spine was like, I felt very बहुत ज़्यादा हो रहा था.
Yeah. So it's about anchoring ourselves back. No? The Om Ma, Om Shri Ma is the simplest way to hold it in this ordinary consciousness. Otherwise, we can just fly out of our body.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, both of you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Rashi. Anybody else which has a question for Kumar or me? We have 3 more minutes. Maggie?
Yeah, today your explanation of the mother symbol was very beautiful, Nilima. I've heard this from you before, but it made a whole new sense today. Thank you for that.
I'm so glad. We say this every time, but we are different too when we hear it every time, right? So
yeah.
They say you never enter the same river twice, and everything about Mother Shri Aurobindo and all true masters, you never enter their teaching the same way twice, right? So you receive them as if it's a freshly brought teaching just for you that day. So, thank you.
Nilima, I really enjoyed the meditation and your whole survey of the integral yoga. And the process of taking us through, it was really very powerful. Thank you for doing that at the end of it.
Thank you, Kumar. Poonam, love to hear from you.
Hi, actually, I wanted to show you these.
Is this Poonam Illuri?
Yes, it is. Namaste.
Hello, Poonam.
So, I don't know how to put the video on to show you. So, we had this, because it's International Yoga Day, so we had about 25 people come over to the farm. We were just discussing yamas, niyamas, and a little bit of yoga, and just to have a little yoga thing going on. And then this man came, and he'd come from the ashram. I think he's the brother of Mr. Champak. And he knows you, Nilima.
Oh.
I forgot his name. So he's been at the ashram since he was 5 years old. And he used to, when mother's car used to come out, apparently he used to go and stop it very playfully. And he wanted, So it was really interesting. Like he just suddenly came with... that guy Sudarshan from Palm Meadows.
Yes.
And he got these really beautiful pictures. So it's of the symbol, exactly the ones you showed just now. So he's got them in postcards. They've got stuff written at the back. which I'll just take. I don't know how to send it to you. I'll take a photograph and then you could maybe put it in the group. And he's got these little laminated blessing packets. I've never seen a laminated one before.
Mm.
So he just came and just gave all this stuff, you know, and then that's exactly the symbol you showed today, you know, both the symbols, and it's just been such a fantastic day, the whole, yeah. So when you say coming back to the Aadhaar and this, I don't really understand why we need to do that. It's such a nice space to be here, you know. Why do we have to come back?
Because we are here to divinize the Aadhaar and not get into the blissed out spiritual realm.
Yeah, it's only a couple of hours left, you know, before we sleep. So I think it's nice to enjoy it till tomorrow morning. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Thank you. It was lovely. Thank you.
Nilima, some of what you said, Sri Aurobindo summed up very nicely, saying all of life is yoga, every moment.
All life is yoga. Yeah. That's his 4-word mantra.
Mantra.
Wonderful. So thank you so much, everyone. We are in a minute past time and it's been beautiful. What we'll do is we have recorded this and we will be putting it up on the YouTube channel, and feel free to share it with other seekers and practitioners or people who are curious about what is the integral yoga, how is it different from other yogas, and how does one go about practicing it. So I hope today's session helped to share.
Thank you, Nilima, and thanks everyone for.
Thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Joining the forum.
Bye-bye. So much, Kumar. Always.
Bye. Always a pleasure and a delight.
Yeah.
How did it go?